Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Josh, and in this week's Wednesday watch list, we are going to be recapping the latest episode of the Traitors Season 3, Episode 7, and then we're going to be talking about a movie I recently saw, the movie being Companion, and then we're going to wrap things up by talking about a couple movies and shows that are coming out soon that I want to go see. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and dive right on into this week's Wednesday watch list. Starting off with the latest episode of the Traitors Season 3, Episode 7. This episode, again, picks up right where we left off last episode. We see all the traitors in the turret huddled up, trying to decide who they're going to murder. With all the events that transpired last episode, the traitors are still like in shambles. The traitors aren't really aligned, they're not really working with each other, they're all sort of working against each other. In the last episode, we actually saw Danielle vote against Rob because Rob got his name thrown out for elimination. So while they're all trying to figure out who they want to murder this episode, Rob throws out Derek's name and he says that Derek has been coming for him hard, and so he thinks that they should murder Derek because Derek at this time is his biggest opposition. Now Danielle immediately gives him pushback and she's like, no, I don't think we should murder Derek because I'm close with Derek. But eventually Rob convinces both Danielle and Carolyn that Derek should be murdered, and the traitors murder Derek. Now, another noticeable thing that happened in this while they were in the turret was Danielle said that she felt alone in this group and that she felt like she didn't really connect with Carolyn or Rob. I'll give my thoughts more on that later, but that is something of note. Moving forward to breakfast, the entire group files into the dining room, and of course the only person missing is Derek, which confirms that Derek has been murdered. Now, upon this revelation, Danielle starts crying, and then we see Alan come in. Alan lets the entire group know that Derek has in fact been murdered, and then he also tells the entire group that they need to get into pairs for the game they're going to play this episode. And after that, Dylan looks to Rob and tells Rob that he has some tea he needs to tell Rob after breakfast. Moving forward, after breakfast, there's a little bit of time in between breakfast and the game in which they have to decide who they're going to partner up with and just sort of workshop it with the other group members. And Dylan takes this time to tell Rob the tea that he mentioned he had to tell him earlier at breakfast. And this tea is Dylan lets Rob know that Derek told Dylan that if he gets murdered, it'll either be Rob or Brittany, who's a traitor, because Derek, again, in the last episode was really coming after Rob, and he was sort of Rob's main opposition. But he also tells Dylan that before the round table, he and Brittany got into a little argument about the fact that she was so unwilling to vote for Rob, which in last episode we saw that made Derek suspicious of Brittany. And Dylan shares this information with Rob, and he also tells Rob that he doesn't think he's a traitor, but he also thinks Brittany is a traitor because of this fight that happened for the round table, and now Derek has been murdered. Another notable thing that happens during this little intermission between breakfast and the game they're going to play this episode is the ladies are sort of sitting on a bench outside, and they're all kind of talking, and I think it's Ciara. She brings up the fact that Danielle was crying yet again, and she says that it's a little bit weird how Danielle has been crying after everybody's gotten eliminated, and she just finds it a little bit dramatic and a little bit over the top, especially considering that these people don't really know each other that well and that they're all just on a game and that they're all just playing a game, and it's not like they're, I think she says, married to each other or something like that. Also, during this little intermission, Tom, Dylan, and Rob sort of get in a little group and they all discuss who they think is traitors, at which point Tom says that he actually suspects Rob because everybody who has gone up against Rob at the round table has seemingly either gotten voted off the show or gotten murdered, and he says that this has happened 3 nights in a row, and it's really suspicious that it's anybody who goes against Rob who ends up getting, again, either voted off the show or murdered. And Tom says that this is his main reasoning behind thinking that Rob is a traitor, simply because of the fact it's happened 3 nights in a row, and it's only been people who have been vocally against or vocally supportive of the fact that Rob is a traitor. Moving forward to the game they play this episode. This episode they play a game where everybody in the group is paired up with another person. They're sort of in like little couple groups, and they're all going to a wedding. Now, at this wedding, the challenge of the game is that each of these couples has to put their hands inside of a box and hold hands the longest amount of time that they can. The 3 couples that hold hands the shortest amount of time will be up for murder tonight, and the couple that holds hands the longest will be safe for murder tonight. There's also $27,000 that they can put into the prize pot for every couple that holds their hands inside the box for 8 minutes. Now, the caveat with this game is that they don't just simply have to hold their hands inside of a box. The host, Alan, is going to present them gifts since it is a fake wedding. Now, these gifts are not anything special. They're actually bugs, and these bugs get poured into the boxes in which they're holding their hands. Again, the main goal here is to hold hands for the longest amount of time possible so you can be safe from murder, but not only that, so you can add money to the prize pot. The first couple to stop holding each other's hands is Dolores and Chriselle. As soon as the first round of bugs get poured in, Dolores and Chriselle immediately let go of each other's hands, and I believe they're out in like less than a minute. Like, it doesn't take any time for them to just stop holding each other's hands because of the bugs getting poured into the box. Now, the first group of bugs that gets poured into the box is millipedes, and then after that, they all get scorpions poured into their boxes. At this point, the only couple that has let go of each other's hands are Dolores and Chriselle, and 5 couples end up moving on to the sudden death round, which is that the couples now have to find a ring inside the pile of bugs that is sitting in these boxes. Only 2 couples successfully find the ring in the allotted time. The 2 pairs are Danielle and Brittany, and Sam and Ivar, which means that these 4 individuals are safe from tonight's murder, and everybody else is at risk of being murdered tonight. These individuals are Dolores, Chriselle, Gabby, Tom, and Dylan. Moving forward, the entire group is back at the castle, and Rob is doing his best to convince people to vote for Brittany, given the information that Dylan shared with him right after breakfast that Derek and Brittany got into a fight, and now Rob is trying to use this to pin Derek's murder on Brittany and frame her as a traitor. Now, it gets brought up that it's mighty convenient how Derek went against Rob and how now Derek is murdered. Rob says that he would never murder Derek immediately after he came for him at the last episode's round table because it doesn't make sense strategically, and he says that he is instead being framed for Derek's murder in order to make the entire group think that Rob is a traitor. He's saying that somebody is trying to frame him by murdering Derek because Derek was the most vocal about Rob potentially being a traitor. Now, Rob also has to convince his fellow traitors to vote for Brittany, and he first goes to Carolyn and runs this plan by her, and she immediately tells him that it's a really bad idea, but she'll go along with it just so then they can all stop infighting. He then goes and runs the idea by Danielle, and she doesn't really do anything except just stay quiet and nod and just kind of go along with it or make it seem like she's going along with it. Meanwhile, she is actually wanting people to vote for Rob because she wants to vote Rob off the show because she feels as if he is the reason why the traitors are infighting. Now, moving forward to the round table, Dylan starts us off here and tells the entire group the information that Derek told him the night before he got murdered, which is that he and Brittany got into a fight and that Derek again told Dylan that if he got murdered, it was either Brittany or Rob, and Dylan lets the entire group know that this is the reason why he thinks Brittany is a traitor because, again, Dylan still doesn't suspect Rob as a traitor. After this, Sam jumps into the conversation and again conveys the same point that Tom made earlier and says that it's mighty funny how everybody who has gone against Rob at the round table has either gotten voted off the show or murdered, and that he actually thinks that Rob is a traitor. After this, all eyes are on Rob, and he gives the same defense that he has been giving all episode, and he says that it makes no sense strategically for him to kill Derek because the entire group witnessed how Derek was so vocal about the fact that he thought Rob was a traitor, and he says that it would make no sense for him to kill Derek because that would immediately point all the arrows in his direction, and he says that instead it's Brittany, and Brittany is trying to make it look like it's Rob in order to frame him and get him voted off the show. Tom then jumps into the conversation and says that he also thinks Rob is a traitor because, again, the past 3 nights, everybody that's gone against Rob at the round table has gotten murdered or voted off, and that he says that they keep voting for everybody except Rob, and now it's time that they actually vote for Rob because they keep doing this over and over and they keep voting off faithfuls. Now, up until this point, Carolyn and Rob were seemingly working together, and Danielle was kind of the odd one out of the Traitors trio. However, Carolyn also decides that she does want Rob off the show. In her little behind the scenes thing, she says that she's nervous, but they might actually have enough votes this episode to actually vote Rob off the show. But she's hesitant to do it because, again, in last episode when they tried this, they didn't have enough votes, and Danielle was the only one out of all 3 traitors to vote for Rob, which immediately made Rob less fond of Danielle. And Carolyn says that she doesn't want the same thing to happen to her, so she's a little bit hesitant about voting for Rob. However, when it comes time to vote, the majority of the group votes for Rob, and Danielle and Carolyn also both vote for Rob, which completely takes him off guard because, again, earlier in the episode, they both had seemingly agreed to go along with his plan to vote for Brittany. However, one thing that did happen during this round table is that some people actually started voting for Tom as well, because they were suspicious of Tom because last episode Tom had thrown some heat in Dolores' direction and Dolores wasn't a traitor at all. But also people are suspecting Tom because he has just been throwing other people's names out left, right, and center, and none of the attention has really been on him. So he has kind of now drawn some attention on himself because he's been throwing out so many people's names and nobody's really been bringing his name up. So he actually got a couple votes this episode. However, again, the majority of the group did indeed vote for Rob, which means that he got voted off the show. Now, of course, when he did his whole speech, he said that I have and have always been a traitor. And of course, this caught a lot of the group off guard, but of course, people like Danielle, Carolyn, and other people who were suspecting Rob this whole time were sort of relieved in the fact that they had been suspecting him for so long. Dylan was arguably one of the most shocked people by this because, again, Dylan and Rob had been working so closely together for about the last 2 to 3 episodes. At the beginning of this episode, Dylan actually shared some information with Rob, and so this really caught him off guard because up until this point, he sincerely believed that Rob was a faithful. Moving forward to the turret, it's now just Danielle and Carolyn in the turret, and Carolyn makes it very clear to Danielle that she still doesn't really fully trust her. Even though Danielle says that she has her back, Carolyn's like, well, yeah, you have my back now, but that's only because your neck was on the line. And so Carolyn doesn't really fully trust Danielle, but Danielle is hoping that she can mend this relationship with Carolyn and that they can secure a win in the end. But again, Carolyn still doesn't fully trust Danielle, and she's always going to be looking over her shoulder in a sense because she's just wary of Danielle ever since she stabbed her in the back. All the people who did not find the ring in the pile of bugs at the game this episode are now up for murder. Again, this group of people is Dolores, Chriselle, Gabby, Tom, and Dylan. And again, the caveat here is that the traitors actually have to do this murder face to face, and all of these people are going to be brought into a sort of chapel in which the traitors are going to have to actually do this murder face to face and tell whoever they decide to murder that they are murdered and see the reaction on that person's face. And that concludes my recap for the latest episode of The Traitors. Now, I do have a couple thoughts on this episode. The first thing that I want to start off with is that Rob's decision to murder Derek, especially after the fact that Derek came after Rob so prominently in episode 6, was definitely like a really bad decision. And immediately after Rob said that he thinks they should murder Derek because he's been coming for him, I immediately was like, that's a really bad idea and that's a really dumb idea. And I was like, I don't know how he's gonna like make this work, because again, this episode he was trying to make it seem like he was being framed, but I'm like, that doesn't really work, because what would somebody gain by framing you instead of just straight up murdering you? Like, he was trying to make it seem like Brittany wanted to frame him for the murder in order to get him off the show, but I'm like, that logic immediately falls apart, because if Brittany is a traitor, she would have just said that she wanted to murder you. Like, the traitors would have just murdered you if they really thought you were their competition or their op. Like, this whole logic around him trying to make it seem like he was being framed, I was like, that immediately is gonna fall apart. Like, that's not gonna hold up, and it doesn't really make any sense, because again, a traitor that thinks your competition is just gonna murder you, and they're not gonna try and frame you because it's immediately gonna blow back on them and look bad. But again, the fact that Rob had just started murdering people who went for him at the round table is where he started to mess up. When he went for Bob the drag queen and Bob the drag queen gave him some blowback and he still went harder and harder into him, like, that is where I think not only did he fracture the traitors, but that's where he started to mess up. Like, going after a fellow traitor doesn't really work out well, especially in a game like this. But then it became this habit of Rob just sort of murdering people or convincing the entire group to vote off people who went against him. We saw that in episode 5 with Wes. Like, Wes said that he thought Rob was a traitor, and Rob immediately switched that right back onto Wes, and the entire group ended up following Rob's suit and they voted him off. Lo and behold, Wes was a faithful. So it's like this habit that he got into of murdering people or convincing the group to vote off people who went against him, like that I think is really what ruined his game. I think if he would have taken a more indirect approach, and instead of directly coming for these people at round tables, but instead planting little seeds in people's heads and then going with whoever somebody else thinks at the round table, like that would have worked out more in his favor instead of him always taking charge. I think that's what it really was. Like, the fact that it seemed like Rob always had to be in charge here. Like, it seemed like from the very get-go, he had to be in charge of the Traitors, he had to be top dog, and he also had to be top dog of the entire group. Like, he wanted to really dictate everything how he wanted it to go so he could win the game. But that doesn't really work in a game like this. Like, you can't do that because that's going to blow back on you. Like, again, you have to really focus on strategy. And so I think that this habit that he got into of, again, murdering or convincing the group to vote off people that spoke out against him at a round table, of course that was going to blow back in his face. And then the whole thing with him trying to make it seem like Brittany was framing him, I'm like, that's not going to hold up. Like, again, going back to what Tom said in the episode, we've done this over and over and over again, and we keep voting out faithfuls. We've only gotten one traitor, and it seems like everybody that goes against you gets murdered, or you convince us to vote them off, and it's time we go for you. Like, that was a really good point, and I'm glad that Tom finally came to that realization. I was happy that Rob got voted off the show. I don't know, I didn't really like his vibes, and I didn't really like his energy, and again, it just seemed like he just wanted to take the game, put it in the palm of his hand, and he thought that he could just manipulate everybody in the game to do his bidding. And he definitely did for a good chunk of the game, but it's like you can't keep manipulating people and convincing people to do your bidding, because in a game like this, people are then going to start questioning you. Like, you have to sort of take a back seat for a little bit and let somebody else take the reins before you start jumping in and manipulating people, if that makes sense. Another thing this episode, and I have said this throughout my entire recaps of this season of The Traitors, Danielle needs to stop crying. Like I said, I get it if she's an emotional person, but again, we saw it in this episode. People are starting to suspect her because she's giving these over-the-top reactions when somebody gets murdered. And it's like, she needs to stop doing that, or she needs to, like, I don't know, just like hold it in for a little bit and do it after breakfast, because when people see her crying at the breakfast table morning after morning after morning, it just comes off as over the top and it looks a little bit suspicious. And I think next episode, people are really going to start taking that to heart, and they're going to start suspecting that Danielle might be a traitor, especially after all the infighting she did with Carolyn. People are already sort of suspicious of Danielle. The seed isn't fully planted, but I think depending on how next episode goes, I definitely think Danielle could be voted off in the next episode, or the episode after this next one that's about to come out. I think out of all of the traitors, Carolyn has the best shot to win this thing. Like, Carolyn has stayed, she's flown under the radar this whole time, again, except when her and Danielle did their little infighting thing. She's flown under the radar, she's got friends, she's got allies, and she isn't really that vocal. Again, she's taken a backseat approach to this, and I think that can work in her favor. I think if she holds it all together to the end, she can end up winning this whole thing. I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't really see how Danielle can do that, because Danielle she's just made too many mistakes, and I feel like again, people are going to start suspecting her in the next 1 to 2 episodes. Like, I think her time is limited. So I think as far as who is going to win this, I think if it's going to be a traitor, Carolyn's got the best shot at this. I don't think Danielle really has enough prowess and enough power and enough like tactics to really pull off a win in this game. But that is going to wrap up my thoughts for the latest episode of The Traitors. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below, and let's move forward to a recent movie I watched and my thoughts on that. The movie that I recently watched is the movie Companion. Now, I don't want to spoil anything for those of you who have not seen this movie yet, but all I'm going to say about this movie is it is a pretty good movie, and the premise of this movie is about, it seems like a romantic love story between a guy and a girl, in which the girl shares that the best 2 times of her life were when she met her partner Josh, and the other best time of her life was when she killed him. So immediately off the premise, this movie, things seem a bit odd in this movie. The trailer kind of distorts things. You can pick up hints and clues from the trailer if you've seen it, but again, I don't want to spoil anything for those of you who have not seen it. But all I want to say is this is actually a really good movie, and initially upon seeing the trailer, I didn't really think I would enjoy it, but I was just like, I might as well just go to the theater and try it out, because what else am I going to go see out there right now? So I ended up going to see this movie, and again, I thought it was a pretty good movie. I thought there were plenty of good action scenes. I really liked the cast. The cast of this movie is Sophia Thatcher playing Iris. She is in Yellow Jackets. She is playing Iris, who is Josh's love interest in this movie. Josh is another one of the main characters of this movie. He is played by Jack Quaid, who is most notably seen in The Boys. He's also in the upcoming movie called Novocaine, and I'm really glad to see that he's getting more work. You've also got Megan, and I apologize if I'm pronouncing her last name wrong, Megan Surrey in this movie, who is in Never Have I Ever. You've also got Lucas Gage, Rupert, I don't know if it's friend or friend, and then you've also got Harvey Guyon, I think is how you pronounce that. Again, I'm sorry if I mispronounce anybody's name, but again, I really like the cast of this movie. I really thought that the chemistry and everything, they all played well off of each other. I liked the chemistry between Jack's character Josh and Sophia's character Iris. I thought the chemistry was really good, and I really liked the scenes that they shared together overall. I also thought that this movie had some really good plot twists. Again, I'm not going to spoil it, but I really think that not just the main plot twist, but some other plot twists in this movie are also very well executed and very well done. One of them even caught me off guard because I didn't see it coming. So overall, I think if you're looking for a bit of I'd say like edgier or more like darker Valentine's Day movie, I definitely think you should go check this out. You've also got that other Valentine's Day movie called Heart Eyes. I haven't seen that yet. I don't think I'm gonna go see it because I'm gonna be honest, it didn't really look that interesting to me. But I think like if you're looking for a Valentine's Day movie that's a bit, again, edgier and a little bit darker, I think this is a really good choice. We've got this whole we've got a huge range of Valentine's Day movies that are coming out this year that are like horror or like really like dark themed. We've got, again, this movie Companion, you've got Heart Eyes, and then you've got that other movie, I forgot the name of it, but it's like this woman's on a date and then someone tells her that she needs to like murder her date. I forget what that movie is called, but you've also got that movie out, and then you've also got Love Hurts, which stars Ke Huy Quan. Again, you've just got a whole range of like Valentine's Day couple themed movies that are like full of action. They take like a much darker approach to not really your usual like rom-com or just romance flick, which I really appreciate that the industry is sort of going on this path where they're like branching out from, again, the usual like rom-com or romance movies, and they're adding like horror elements or action elements to these things. I really like that direction. I think that if you're looking, again, for a action-packed movie, you love a good plot twist, and you're looking for something a little bit, I wouldn't really say horror, but a bit of a thriller movie for Valentine's Day, definitely go check out Companion. Moving on to the last segment of this week's Wednesday watch list, I am going to discuss a couple upcoming movies and shows that I want to watch. So we're going to start off with movies. The main movie that I'm looking forward to going to see is, as per last week's episode, Captain America, the new Captain America movie. I believe it's called Brave New World. I don't know if I said this in last week's episode, but I think they should have stuck with the New World Order title. I don't know, I just like that title more. It just sounds a little bit more edgier to me, and I think that title just plays well off of like the previous Captain America titles, but hey, what do I know? But I'm looking forward to seeing this movie. It comes out the same week that I'm releasing this video, so I'm really looking forward to going to see that. I've also already got my tickets. I also want to go see The Monkey. That is a horror movie that is coming out this month. It is about a toy monkey that plays the drum that is found in somebody's attic, and this monkey is like cursed or demonic. It has wreaked havoc on these twin brothers their whole lives, and they somehow got rid of it, but now it's back and it's just wreaking havoc on their lives again. I think it looks a little bit silly, a little bit goofy, but I still want to go see it. This movie most notably stars Theo James, who is most known from the Divergent series in this movie, and I'm excited to see him back in the limelight. But yeah, I definitely want to go check out this movie. I think it looks interesting. Again, I think it looks a little bit silly, a little bit goofy, but I'm always down for a good horror movie. And then to wrap up the movie segment, my plan is to watch every single Oscar-nominated movie before the Oscars, because even though I've seen, I'd say like 4 or 5 of the movies that are nominated for Oscars, I looked at the full list, like I wrote down every name of every movie and short film that's nominated for an Oscar, and there's like at least, I'd say 10 to 15 movies and short films that I haven't seen, and a good chunk of them I didn't even know existed. So my plan is to just like get through as many of these movies and short films as I can before the Oscars. The Oscars is on, I believe, March 2nd or March 3rd. So I've got roughly, you know, a little bit under a month, but I think my plan here is to watch like 1 or 2 movies a day so I can just like get all the way through them before the Oscars. Yeah, that's my plan. Is I just want to get through as many of these Oscar movies as I can before the Oscars so I can let you guys know what movies I think are gonna win and what movies I think should win before the Oscars. And then last but not least, shows. There are 2 shows that I am looking forward to watching, one of which I'm already watching because the new season just dropped. That show is Severance. I think I talked about this in last week's episode. I really like Severance. I like the first season and I really like the second season. I like where the second season is going. And then the other show that I am looking forward to watching is the new season of Yellow Jackets. Yellow Jackets season 3 drops, I believe, on Valentine's Day. I believe they're dropping 1 or 2 episodes of this show. So I'm looking forward to watching that. Now, the last season of Yellow Jackets just really like grossed me out. Like some of the things in it just really grossed me out. But I think like where they're taking the show and the direction they're heading is pretty interesting. I really, really like the cast of Yellow Jackets. I think everyone is really well cast, especially the younger and older versions of the characters. I think whoever did the casting for Yellow Jackets nailed it. And again, I'm really looking forward to watching the new season of Yellow Jackets. All right, and that is going to wrap it up for this week's Wednesday watch list. I just want to thank you guys all so much for tuning in and watching. And please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. And I will see you guys all in the next video. Toodles!